They lied to us. They told us cigarettes were safe, harmless, even good for you. Doctors smoked, athletes smoked, pregnant women smoked because big tobacco said it was fine. But once the lawsuit started and the truth came out, their profits tanked. So they did what any good manipulator would do. They found a new way to hook us, a new product, a new target. And this time, it wasn't our lungs, it was our cravings. And the lie they fed us is still alive in your fridge, your pantry, and even your kids' lunchbox. How did they start? This is what it is. The modern cigarette empire began with the names we still recognize today, like Philip Morris, the maker of Marlboro, one of the most iconic cigarette brands in history. Another one, R.J. Reynolds, the force behind Camel, Pall Mall, and Winston. These companies were giants. Their marketing was genius, sexy, bold, rebellious. Joe Camel became cooler than Mickey Mouse in the 90s. And by the mid 20th century, they had convinced the world that smoking was not only safe, but sophisticated. And then came the science, the lawsuits, the undeniable connection to cancer, heart disease, and premature death. By the 1970s and 80s, public trust in tobacco was crumbling, and so were their profits. Smoking bans, warning labels, and class action suits were closing in. So, what did they do? Philip Morris saw the writing on the wall, and in the 1980s, they started investing in something that looked safer, friendlier, something that could still be addictive without the stigma of cigarettes. In 1985, Philip Morris bought General Foods for $5.6 billion. And seeing their brands all over the grocery store, we've eaten their foods. So let's think about it. The Kool-Aid, the Jell-O, Maxwell House coffee, shake and bake that we use on our favorite pork chops was bought out by a cigarette company. Then in 1988, they bought Kraft Foods for $12.9 billion, adding in our macaroni and cheese, Velveeta, Oscar Mayer, Lunchables, Capri Sun. What? And then R.J. Reynolds followed suit. They merged with Nabisco in 1985, forming the RJR Nabisco, the company behind Oreo cookies, Chips Ahoy, Fig Planters peanuts. Think about it, people. Marlboro and mac and cheese, Oreos and Camels, all owned by the same masterminds. They had moved from one type of craving with the nicotine over to another one. And this time, the weapon wasn't a cigarette. It was a snack. These weren't food lovers. We keep that in mind. These people, they were chemical manipulators. They weren't over here about the food. And just like they optimized the nicotine delivery in cigarettes, they optimized bliss in food. They brought in psychophysicists, the Harvard-trained Howard Moskowitz, who helped companies find the bliss point. The exact mix of sugar, salt, and fat that lights up your brain's reward center without making you feel full. You ever wondered why you can eat a whole package of Oreos in one sitting? That's why. The bliss point wasn't just a theory. It was tested and perfected. Moskowitz and his teams would conduct massive consumer taste tests. Hundreds of variations of single products were formulated, tested, tweaked to identify which one triggered the strongest pleasure response with the least satiety. It wasn't about flavor. It was about control. They just wanted to be able to make more money. How could they get people to buy more product? Is if they sold a better product. For example, in one experiment with tomato sauce, Moskowitz tested 45 different formulations to find the precise level of sweetness and mouthfeel that would make people crave more, not less. This led to the explosion of sweetened pasta sauces like Prego, which now often contain more sugar per serving than ice cream. This wasn't cooking, it was engineering. They created foods that were cheap to make, easy to crave, hard to stop eating. Moskowitz helped develop Dr. Pepper flavors, Campbell's soups, Kraft salad dressings, those foods that we love. I used to drink Dr. Pepper 3 or 4 times a week. This was my normal. Almost every day I'd be drinking another Dr. Pepper. Campbell's soup I thought was healthy, easy way to make dinner. No, I thought the salad dressing I was buying to put onto my healthy salad was actually good for me. And then I find out, no, it actually wasn't. And who in the world, you're over here owning food companies, and instead of hiring a chef, you hire somebody who studies the psychophysiology. They studied not only the taste, okay, but also how the food feels in your mouth. It's a concept known as mouthfeel and how quickly it disappears. If a food melts quickly, like a Cheeto, your brain is tricked into thinking you're eating less, even if you're consuming hundreds of calories. This phenomenon is called vanishing caloric density, and it's another technique used to override the brain's natural stop signal. We are literally just like destroying brains because we're not allowing our body to do what it's naturally supposed to do because we have discovered how to bypass all of that. And every bite, get this, every bite was calculated, every flavor tested, but it wasn't to nourish you, but to make you lose control so you keep eating more. They were applying the same science they used in cigarettes to food. Why is it difficult to only smoke one cigarette? Why do there's so many people out there who are addicted to nicotine? Because they made it that way. They made it so you could be hooked on it and keep going back for more. And just like Joe Camel was aimed at kids, so were their foods. Look at this. Bright colors, cartoon mascots, prize giveaways, commercials during Saturday morning cartoons. I remember when I used to watch Saturday morning cartoons at my grandparents' house, there were a lot. The main ones I remember were the cereal, like Lucky Charms. Kool-Aid ran mail-in prize clubs, same as cigarette companies, and Lunchables were branded as fun, not fuel. Because of course they're fun. You get to like make your own little lunch. How cool is that? Even though they were packed with sodium, sugar, and preservatives. Philip Morris knew if they got your kid hooked early, they'd have a customer for life. Because once you're addicted to however they make that food, you're going to keep eating it. Cereal brands like Cap'n Crunch, Lucky Charms, and Fruit Loops all use hyperactive cartoon mascots to create excitement and loyalty among children. I'll be honest, I was one of them as a kid. Products were placed at child eye level on store shelves. Go into the grocery store and look. Look how they sell. Marketing is incredible. Not by accident. Like they're not finding this stuff over here by accident, but by design. It's specific so they can get you to buy more. In schools, vending machines with sugary snacks and drinks from these brands became common in the 90s and early 2000s, a result of lobbying and partnerships with school districts that they needed the extra funding. They got to do what they got to do. And the real kicker, these weren't just treats. They became breakfast, lunch, and our after-school snacks for millions of kids. Some marketing campaigns even used children themselves, showing kids laughing, sharing, and being praised for choosing the cool snack. And studies later showed that children as young as 3 years old could identify brand logos and associate them with happiness long before they could read. In the early 2000s, Philip Morris spun off of Kraft into its own company. R.J. Nabisco dissolved, but the formulas, the marketing, and the science of addiction stayed. The food industry didn't forget what big tobacco taught them. How to hijack the brain, how to exploit the willpower, and how to create craving that's never satisfied. Ultra-processed foods now dominate shelves, and many of the same brands are still on the top, still using the same blueprint that big tobacco left behind. So now what? What does this mean? What does this look like for us now? Well, now we're dealing with obesity, diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver, depression. Even children today are showing signs of metabolic disease before they hit puberty. And according to the CDC, nearly 1 in 5 children in the U.S. is obese. Many have high blood pressure, insulin resistance, or elevated cholesterol, conditions once only seen in adults. Rates of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease are rising in children due to sugar-laden beverages and processed foods. By age 10, many kids already show signs of early metabolic syndrome. Children today are also facing record rates of anxiety, depression, and attention disorders. And while there are many contributing factors, scientists are increasingly pointing to gut health and diet as the root causes. And hold on right here. Gut health is going to generally be based off of what you're putting in your gut. So if you're not giving your body what it needs, that goes back straight into your diet. A diet loaded with processed, high sugar foods doesn't just harm the body, it disrupts the brain. And all this while the food industry tells us to eat everything in moderation. Moderation doesn't work when you're being chemically manipulated into eating more than what your body actually needs. This isn't just about big tobacco. This is about power, deception, and the way addiction hides in plain sight. They made us feel like it was all our fault, that you just need more discipline. But now we know. They lied to us. They sold us addiction in a box of crackers, in a bottle of juice, in your kid's favorite snack, and then they tell it it's our fault. But we're done falling for all of this. And now we take our power back, one truth at a time. How do we solve it? We switch to eating more whole foods, less of the highly processed stuff. If this has meant anything to you, if you've noticed this in your own life or with your kids, drop a comment, tell me your experience. And if this has meant anything for you, go ahead and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video.